Woo! Man, I got to tell you, that was close. I thought we were going to get through a season without hearing anything stupid out of Sheryl Swoopes' mouth, and anything that sounds rather interesting, something that you might choose to give some side-eye to.
In one sweeping move, the Indiana Fever shocked the basketball world by cutting not one, but two high-profile rookies from the roster. As fans were attempting to process the news, the league was rocked by a plot twist that had the whole WNBA buzzing. The president of the anti-Caitlin Clark group, Sheryl Swoopes, emerged from the shadows as if on a personal comeback tour, but this time, she targeted the entire Fever operation rather than just Caitlin Clark.
And you have a black player that just got cut, and Sheryl Swoopes is not happy about that.
When we all believed Swoopes had been exiled to unknown territory, she suddenly reappears out of nowhere. What did she have to say? And how is the Indiana Fever putting an end to all this noise? What began as a routine roster shakeup swiftly evolved into a full-blown league drama dripping with tension and the kind of headlines that practically write themselves. Tell us what you think of Swoopes. Let's go in the comment section.
Call me nuts, but unfortunately for the old WNBA fandom and media, in her case, media and old players, unfortunately, in some cases, you do feel like there is something else lurking behind said opinions that may not be basketball related. Let's put it that way.
First, let's talk about the cuts that garnered media attention. One of the most drastic preseason roster decisions in recent memory was made by the Indiana Fever. Bree Hall, the electric guard and two-time national champion from South Carolina, was fired before she had a chance to play a single minute in the first game against Washington. She played a few minutes against Brazil, and then she was gone. If that felt like a gut punch, wait, because the Fever wasn't over yet.
Bree Hall is now gone, as you know, and today it was announced that Yvonne Ejim has been waived by the Fever as well. Sophie Cunningham talked about that yesterday, saying you can latch on to another team, another place.
Just because you didn't make a roster doesn't mean you're out of the W club.
About a day later, the team declared that two rookies with dazzling college resumes and genuine promise were given pink slips before they could even unpack their bags. Ivani Jip, the Gonzaga scoring leader and a player with enough heart to power the entire Pacific Northwest, was also cut. The brutality of professional sports is evident in the fact that both of them had hardly any time to warm up before being taken out of commission. Timing fit is more important than talent, and occasionally the financial side of basketball collides with roster math fantasies.
So the Indiana Fever, as expected, have waived Yvonne Ejim. She's just not at the level that the Indiana Fever are hoping her to be at.
The Fever announced it directly. Thank you, Yvonne Ejim, who was the all-time leading scorer in Gonzaga history.
Naturally, the next question is, why are these two? To comprehend the pain, you must look at the Fever salary cap position because to Katie Lou Sampson's oversized deal, which the team had to buy out in order to recruit important veterans. The team could only afford to have 11 players on the roster, including Natasha Howard and other veterans. Bonner, Dana Carlson, Sydney Bree Turner-Cunningham, Sophie, due to their at least one-year guaranteed contracts, Dyrus Dantas, and the recently fired Kelsey Mitchell would still be responsible for the Fever's payroll in the event of their termination. 10 out of 11 roster spots are locked since the only players who could theoretically be cut from the current roster and have their salaries taken out of the books are those who signed their original rookie contracts when they were drafted, which means Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, and Lexi Hall. No sane person would cut these three.
Man, it's hard, right? We all reached out. I think that they brought really good people in, great people into training camp this year. But just because you didn't make this spot, this is probably one of the harder rosters to make in the W this year. It doesn't mean you're out of the W, and you just got to keep ready, keep playing, keep grinding it out. And if it's hard to make the league. I know Sid and I, we were second rounders. We stuck. Her experience is a little bit different than mine, but just because you didn't make a roster doesn't mean you're out of the W club.
Given the need for younger forwards in the rotation and her ability to run the floor and provide elite defense, fans are calling Michaela Timpson the steal of the draft because she was selected at the 19th overall when many expected her to be in the top 10. In reality, all three rookies, including Timpson, who has been displaying flashes of brilliance during training camp and preseason games, are vying for a single spot.
Michaela Timpson is obviously at a certain level. She's a rim runner. She just obviously has a higher ceiling than Ejim at the moment. And this is maybe a hot take.
These cuts hurt because they represent more than just talent. They represent hope. And just like that, 2 dreams were postponed. For fans of Hall and Egypt, this was more than just a box score move. It was the harsh intersection of salary caps, limited roster spots, and the fierce competition for a championship window.
After all, we saw Sheryl Swoopes in rare form, hating on Caitlin Clark all last year. Well, maybe she has figured out, well, hating on Clark, I've been told that's not really a great idea, yada, yada, yada. So what other white girls can I tune up from the Indiana Fever?
Naturally, the response came quickly, with Sheryl Swoopes leading the charge with a loud hailer. When Bree Hall's cut appeared on the newswire, Swoopes glowed as if she had been anticipating this kind of drama all off-season. Her comeback wasn't a lighthearted one. Rather, it was a verbal and physical assault.
Okay, example. The Washington Mystics Indiana Fever game. Because I know on social media, people were like, well, why aren't the starters in for the Mystics? They could win this game. And I was there, right? Because preseason is about, yes, you're going to play your starters. You're going to play your players. Typically, they don't even play that many minutes, right? Because you have so many players on your roster that you got to make roster cuts. So you're still trying to figure out who can fit what we're doing.
In the most recent Women's Hoop Show episode, Swoopes not only voiced her concerns, but also launched a verbal assault against head coach Stephanie White. According to Swoopes, White not only mismanaged the rotations, but also essentially sabotaged them. She questioned why Bree Hall was kept on the bench, while others with less potential received priority minutes.
But I did have a question, though, with Indiana, right? Because even though the starters weren't in, like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hall they've been in the league for a while. You actually had players who, like Bree Hall, why wasn't she in that game per se? If you're still trying to figure out who's going to make the team, who you're going to cut. So I was a little confused with what Steph was doing.
If you're still trying to decide who to cut, here's why Bree Hall wasn't even playing as she demanded. If that wasn't clear enough, the subtext was even louder. This wasn't just about basketball IQ. It was about who gets the benefit of the doubt, who gets to prove themselves, and who gets benched before they even take the stage. If you thought Swoopes was finished, think again. She intensified the tension by aiming at the 2 players who did profit from White's strategy. With surgical precision, Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull, 2 women Swoopes targeted but whose existence she questioned, worded it in a way that, let's just say, the implications were loud enough to reverberate throughout the WNBA Twitter realm.
Ariafin. Okay. This is gonna be a spicy season because Kiki was like, what, Sophie? Girl, don't come over here. Sophie was like,
already,
I was
game
here
1.
Here for it. But the fact that's a rookie, right?
I know.
Kiki,
she did not back down.
But she just turned and laughed. She was like, what? What did you say? What are we doing?
That's not subtle. That's not shade. That's a full spotlight and a narrative bomb dropped in the middle of the room. Then came the comment that all but confirmed her angle Swoopes with a healthy dose of sarcasm, joking that perhaps she should concentrate on getting the other white girls on the Fever now that she'd been told to leave Clark alone.
My goodness, I mean, we've had 2 preseason games. 2! And we're back to it. We're back here. She's criticizing Stephanie White. I bet Sheryl Swoopes hates that last name. Criticizing Stephanie White. And, of course, it relates to Lexi Hall and Sophie Cunningham. Ooh, I bet Sheryl Swoopes hates her some Sophie Cunningham. You know she does.
Remember that this is not Swoopes' first anti-Clark stance. She was among the first to criticize Caitlin Clark's records, style, swagger, age, leadership, and pretty much everything except her shoe size. Now that Clark has the full support of the Indiana Fever and fans worldwide, Swoopes isn't just focused on Clark. She has eyes on everyone on the perimeter of Cunningham Hall who dared to join forces with Clark in creating this new WNBA powerhouse.
Swoopes hadn't shied away from speaking her mind, as last season she raised questions about the legitimacy of Indiana Fever stars Caitlin Clark's collegiate scoring record. During the recent episode, Swoopes questioned Fever head coach Stephanie White's decision to give veterans like Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham minutes over Bree Hall and then cut her without giving her a fair opportunity to prove herself.
It's starting to become rather obvious at this point. Swoopes doesn't just dislike what the Fever are doing, she resents it. She sees this influx of young, self-assured talent changing the face of the league, and she isn't interested in celebrating it. Instead, she is here to question it, challenge it, and, if necessary, burn the court with commentary at every turn. However, while Swoopes stirs things up, Clark and the Fever are creating excitement. Sure, they cut 2 promising rookies, and yes, that hurts, but they did it with the sole purpose of developing a contender. Bree Hall and Yvonne Ejim have bright futures ahead of them, no doubt, and we appreciate the hustle and class they brought, but the Fever they're all in, and the league is beginning to notice.
The preseason doesn't have to be just about your draft picks at all. It can be about, I need this team to learn how to build chemistry on the floor together, working as a team. By the way, learning my system because I'm a new coach and we're not playing under the Christie Sides rules anymore. You played basketball, Sheryl Swoopes? I don't understand.
Because let's be honest, Coach, this is when Swoopes' hot take begins to melt under its own heat. Stephanie White's roster choices weren't made at random. Rather, they were calculated and based on a single factor that is crucial for a new, redesigned squad looking to discover its identity, chemistry, experience, and fit.
Keep in mind, a lot of this team is new to each other. So getting minutes among with a new player like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull together, and some of these others, veterans, I'm sure is a priority. It's not about getting the minutes to prove whether or not they make the team. This team has to build actual chemistry if they want to win a title. That's what this is about.
With all due respect to natural talent, Sophia Cunningham and Lexi Hull have accumulated a significant amount of hard-earned playing time at this level and are familiar with tempo spacing and the demands of a professional season. They are not learning the ropes. Rather, they are anchoring them when you have a roster as young and well-known as Indiana's. You need players who can calm the commotion rather than escalating it, and who don't freak out when things become messy.
The whole team, outside of your core 4, Caitlin Clark, Aaliyah Boston, Kelsey Mitchell, and Lexi Hull, basically the whole rest of the whole team's new. Dantas is on there. Oh, you get my point, but you got a bunch of new pieces.
And in relation to proving oneself, Sophie Cunningham did just that during the Fever's exhibition match against Brazil. She didn't only show up. Instead, she demonstrated vocal leadership, two-way hustle, and a strong presence that shouted, "I belong here." This was a veteran who seized her position with both hands and challenged anyone to question it. Naturally, none of that made it into Swoopes' diatribe. Instead, she twisted it into a darker narrative that claimed Clark and her team were a part of a system that excluded worthy young players.
Oh my God, Sophie's a dog. She just is, she's a competitor. She's versatile, so she allows us to do different things. Like, she plays with such a toughness. She's huge, and she's going to be for us all season long. But what she brings from an energy standpoint, she raises the level of play of everybody around her as soon as she steps foot on the floor. Hell, even on the sideline. I mean, her communication, everything. She's definitely an X factor.
Take a moment to enjoy the ridiculousness of what's happening. Caitlin Clark, the smiling point guard, the logo sniper, the record slayer, and the reason the Indiana Fever is a must-watch. Instead of being the once-in-a-generation star that she is, TV is being treated like some sort of cosmic disturbance. This woman has attracted millions of new fans, changed the way that women's sports are portrayed in the media, and made preseason games into pay-per-view events. She hasn't only increased Indiana Fever, she has also increased WNBA economy ticket sales, TV ratings, and merchandise sales. The league never anticipated the stimulus package that is Caitlin Clark.
This team is going to break so many records this year. Attendance, viewership, merch sales, all of the things.
This was a preseason WNBA game. It is unbelievable what it is Caitlin Clark does.
Whenever Caitlin Clark takes the floor, that maybe is different not only from any player in the WNBA, but from any player in basketball.
However, as everyone knows, fame also brings with it friction, and in Clark's case, that friction has a name. Sheryl Swoopes was eager to disparage Clark's collegiate scoring records last season, casting doubt on him whenever she could. This year, she's doing it again, but this time she's including Clark's teammates in the conversation, portraying the Fever's hiring choices as coded favoritism. Whether true or not, the implication is loud enough to overpower reason.
People were so excited for this game for many reasons, but the main one being that Caitlin Clark would be returning to Iowa to play at Carver Hawkeye Arena, the Brazilian national team. Even though they lost by that much, it still seemed like they had a great time. Caitlin was signing their jerseys after the game. They were taking photos with her.
She's my role model. I really look up to her.
However, among all of this noise, the truth is always being obscured. Stephanie White and the Fever Brass are responsible for controlling the salary cap, creating rotations, and selecting preseason lineups. Caitlin Clark is not cutting players. However, as the team's most well-known player, Clark will be held accountable for every decision the Fever make, every cut, every contract, and every minute played. Whether she likes it or not, she is suddenly living in a pressure cooker.
Sheryl Swoopes is in mid-season hateration form. I'm sorry, this looks a different way to me. All right? You just, there's no other way around it.
What's more revealing, Swoopes clarified that this is not a one-and-done piece of analysis. Her tone implied that this would be a season-long resentment match, and that whenever Clark does well, someone will be willing to say yes. But in the meantime, the stakes inside the Indiana locker room are much higher. This isn't just about chemistry. It's also about surviving a media storm and succeeding in a fishbowl. Clark, Boston, Cunningham, Mitchell Bonner, Hull Howard Coulson. This squad is loaded with talent, including Dantas Turner and whoever will be the 11th player. However, skill does not always translate into collaboration. If they wish to challenge for the championship, they will need to have the trust, resilience, and degree of focus to ignore the whirling chaos.
And unfortunately, I think they're not only going to go after Caitlin Clark this year, they're going to go after Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull. There, I said it out loud.
And then there's the microscope watching every move that Clark makes. She's expected to do more than just succeed. She's expected to go beyond missing a shot, turning the ball over, cueing the think pieces, but draining a logo 3-thread and no-look dime, or pulling off a game-winning run that won't just inspire, but provoke, because in today's WNBA, Clark is more than just a player. She's redefining a new generation, and not everyone is prepared for that ride. For the old guard, it feels like a threat to the new school. So let's hear it with Swoopes speaking truth to power. Or is this just another instance of the old guard trying to gatekeep the spotlight? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let us know if you're crushing it with Caitlin Clark and the Fever. If this is just the preseason heat, just think of what will happen when the real season starts. Subscribe and enable all notifications so you don't miss anything.